Chapter 6. The Duo. The winds began to whip across Kal Dramore's surface, swirling violently and licking the snow-covered landscape with an icy tongue. Far from home and completely out of his element, the Jawa leaned into the wind and cursed everything and everyone that came to his overactive mind. The cold, the mission, the impossible situation he'd somehow gotten himself into. He struggled through the waist-deep snowdrift, each step a small victory against a planet that seemed determined to kill him. Dragging the hindquarters of a audiobook behind him, the Jawa named Taktu painted a crimson trail through the snow, a path any predator with half a brain could follow. "Why always is it me who does dangerous work only, yeah?" he muttered quick and excitedly in Jawa'ese. "In harm's way, Taktu is being put, always. Let only Taktu take all the risks." He pulled his heavy robe tighter around his shoulders with his free hand, trying to seal out the biting wind that seemed determined to find every gap in his clothing. Always Taktu is carrying the heavy load," he continued loudly. "I am tired of this kind of arrangement." His grumbling continued, half drowned by the whipping windstorm that continued to build. From above, if one were to fly over Taktu's position, one would notice that he was walking in a large circular motion. The bloody tracks in the snow marked his elliptical path, deliberate but peculiar. 5 more minutes only is Taktu waiting, and I am finished, yeah? He continued angrily. "I am meaning it. Any longer and my back opening will freeze shut." He was interrupted mid-sentence by a roar that could only be identified as a whomper, by the volume and resonance, a huge one. Taktu dropped the leg and began looking around frantically. There was a mound somewhere. There had to be. The plan had been simple. Head for the mound when the beast appeared. But between the whipping wind and the snow that had fallen in the last hour, everything appeared to be the same cursed height. The Jawa ran a few steps in one direction, then another, his movements growing more desperate with each passing second. The roar came again, closer this time, close enough that the sound seemed to vibrate through his bones. He stood still, his small hand moving instinctively to where his blaster should have been. Empty leather, nothing but cold air and the bitter taste of regret. The plan, he thought. That stupid plan born of curiosity, overconfidence, and too much Garmac black whiskey. "Don't look like hunters," his partner had said, eyes gleaming with what Taktu had mistaken for cunning. "Don't carry any weapons. Try to blend in like natural prey." They had agreed, nodding like seasoned hunters who would have known better had they been sober. Now it all seemed ludicrous, as if a whomper, ancient and hungry, and driven by instincts older than civilization, would pause to catalogue what a Jawa carried before deciding whether to feast on his bones. "Bad plan, bad plan," he obsessively repeated as he resigned himself to this absurd situation. "Never again separated from my weapons I will be, yeah?" he yelled into the merciless wind, looking up and shaking his free fist at the sky, as if cursing the very heavens themselves. Soon he could see it through the swirling snow. Barely. Its white fur provided perfect camouflage in the wind-whipped drifts, but he could make out the massive shape moving toward him with deadly purpose. The creature towered above every centimetre of Taktu's 1-metre frame. The beast, now locked onto the pungent scent of the Jawa, headed straight for his position with the relentless determination of a predator that had found its meal. Taktu howled desperately into the wind. "If I live after this day, yeah, owing me big time you are, owing me." Taktu lifted his hands into what could only be construed as a fighting stance as the whomper closed within a few meters. It cocked its large head back, baring all its teeth, then hunched forward, ready to capture its tiny prey. At that moment it made another hideous noise, not a roar, but a shriek of pain as a spear tip exploded out of the beast's chest, sprinkling Taktu with dark red blood. The beast whipped around, badly wounded, to face a fierce warrior who emerged from the snow mound where he had been lying in wait, armed with a battle axe. Taktu's 1-metre partner, Dabielo Imak, Dabi for short. The Ewok took a mighty swing with his axe, slicing through the front of the Wampa's ankles with the precision of someone who had done this before, many times before. It roared again as it crashed to the ground. In all its writhing pain, the Wampa struggled to locate its prey-turned-hunter, but the Ewok leaped into the air and landed squarely on its back, attacking the beast like a butcher working a particularly stubborn carcass. There was nothing noble about it, nothing clean, just the wet work of killing something that had intended to kill them first. Finally, Dabby raised his battle axe one last time, bringing it down to separate head from shoulders. The Ewok sat still, watching the blood ooze from the body. Once it stopped, he stood and raised his hands high. Allelu, Tochne, Yub Nub. Taktu scurried up to the carcass, grabbing his hooded head with both hands. Always, always I am telling you, don't be damaging the body. No, 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 where all valuable fluids are kept. The Jawa gestured wildly, emphasizing his consternation at his friend, who seemed to forget this fact regularly. How many times am I telling you? Beast is dead. Good meat, good fur, Dabby said in the tongue both could understand. Good for snow nomads, yes. But they are poor. Buy only meat and skin, yeah? Taktu replied harshly in their shared language. More money selling fluids from beast's body. Be happy. No stress, little friend, Dabby replied with a quirky Ewok smile and head tilt, blood still dripping from his axe. A ship that looked more like a floating garbage barge than the transport of two very successful bounty hunters settled onto the ice with a grinding shriek of protest. The Mahara Sun had seen better decades, though her crew was still enjoying theirs. A work droid that walked upright on two legs descended the ship's ramp, its four arms swaying rhythmically as it left oil-stained footprints in the snow. He did it. Again? Said NE1, its mechanical voice carrying what might have been exasperation, though with droids, one could never be certain whether emotions were programmed or simply wished into existence by lonely organic minds. Taktu was too angry to answer, his breath coming in sharp puffs that crystallized and fell like tiny failures onto the frozen ground. Dabby didn't respond either. He had found a choice section of Wampa haunch, carved it free with eager strokes, and begun eating the steaming flesh raw. Goop mana mana gunda! Blood ran down his chin in rivulets as he chewed. The sight made Taktu's stomach turn, though he'd seen worse things done for survival. Much worse. Whatever fluids you can get, yeah? Try to get, he told NE1. Anything you can harvest from what remains, if we can sell, is good enough, yes? The droid's four arms pulled surgical tools from retractable body compartments, implements that had served double duty in interrogation work when bounties proved uncooperative. It began working with the cold efficiency that only machines could muster, carving, draining, and skinning the massive corpse. Steam rose from the exposed meat in the frigid air, and the metallic scent of blood mixed with the ozone tang of approaching storms. In under an hour, the Wampa had been reduced to profitable components, meat packed in preservation containers, precious fluids secured in sellable glass vials, hide rolled and stored, nothing wasted. NE1 settled into the pilot's chair, its four arms retracting the surgical implements with mechanical precision. The droid's power core hummed with satisfaction. All that butcher's work accomplished without so much as a flicker in its energy reserves, leaving it fresh and ready for the journey ahead. Where to, fearless leaders? NE1 said, its mechanical voice carrying what might have been sarcasm, were he not a droid. Homak Core, Petra Core, or Vila Stash? Licencia Lava, go, K? Taktu said, his irritation fading now that he had valuable goods to sell. They lifted off toward the nearest Corvent trading post, Licencia Lava, a place where questions weren't asked and credits changed hands faster than loyalties. There, in the sprawling free market stalls, where anything could be bought for the right price, and everything had its seller, they sold their meat to pirate cooks, who cared very little about what they served their comrades. The furs went to nomads, whose children would sleep warmer because of wampa hide. Their final stop was the apothecary, where wampa fluids commanded premium prices from buyers who preferred not to hunt the beasts themselves. The Arishanar believed that liquid from wampa pineal glands could cure all degenerative diseases, a faith born from scattered reports of miraculous recoveries that might have been coincidence, or might have been something more. The Zeneville claimed that other specific wampa body fluids could increase a male's stamina and virility, and while the science remained unclear, the testimonials were enthusiastic enough to maintain demand. As for the horns, the scattered Tamal tribes dwelling on wampa-populated worlds swore that ground horn, when properly mixed with certain alkaloids found in cave fungi, created a neural link between tribe members that transcended individual consciousness. This collective state supposedly brought profound unity and tactical coordination during hunts and conflicts, though whether this was chemical enhancement or mere ritual psychology remained hotly debated among xenobiologists. Interestingly enough, the Alani monks claimed to achieve similar mental confluence through pure meditation in their revered Kenzinkai state, requiring no external substances whatsoever. Rumors and lore aside, any one of those vials could be sold for 40,000 credits, or 2,200 shial, a currency as common in this sector as broken dreams and empty promises. Taktu, now properly armed with his heavily modified Tothan blaster, sonic charge grenades, and DT-12 heavy blaster pistol, strode into the apothecary with the confidence of a man who knew the value of what he carried. Darby followed, war axe on his back and dagger gleaming at his side, his earlier feast still visible as dried blood beneath his claws. The two found stools at the counter where drugs, toxins, and other chemical solutions to life's problems could be bought and sold without troublesome questions. Taktu opened his satchel with theatrical flair, allowing several vials to roll across the scarred metal counter. Each one caught the dim light like liquid jewels, though jewels that had been torn from a screaming beast's corpse mere hours before. A voluptuous Twi'lek behind the counter began examining the vials with the educated eye of someone who had seen every type of biological extract the galaxy had to offer. Her fingers moved with deliberate care as she held each vial to the light, murmuring a simple as she studied their color and purity. She had the look of someone who had sampled too much of her own merchandise over the years. Beautiful still, but with eyes that had seen too much and felt too little. 100% pure bile and zum liquid, okay? Very good for the men it is, neh, Taktu said proudly. I would need to sample the bile, the Twi'lek said, her voice carrying the excitement of someone desperately trying to seem uninterested. Taktu pulled a small testing vial from his satchel, opened it with reverent care, and poured 2 drops onto the sample stick she provided. The Twi'lek placed it on her tongue and closed her eyes, surrendering herself to whatever visions or sensations the wampa's essence might bring. The two partners watched in tense silence as her head tilted slowly backward, her blue skin darkening to a shade that spoke of dangerous pleasures and profitable addictions. For a moment, she looked almost peaceful, the way corpses looked peaceful before rigor mortis set in. After what felt like an eternity, she opened her eyes. Without a word, she reached beneath the counter and placed a stack of 50,000 shial markers on the scarred surface. Dabby's hand shot toward the markers with Ewok eagerness, but Taktu's smaller hand clamped down on his partner's wrist with surprising strength. 80,000, K? Taktu said, with the finality of a judge pronouncing sentence. 60, the Twi'lek answered, her voice still dreamy from the bile's effects as she returned to a more normal shade of blue. That's fair market value. 70,000, nay? Taktu countered, adding with merchant steel, or I am taking my business to someone who appreciates quality, yeah? The Twi'lek studied him for a long moment, her pupils still dilated from the sample. What she had just experienced was potent enough, and profitable enough, to justify paying his price. Finally, she pulled 20,000 additional Shael markers from beneath the counter and placed them with the others into a reinforced carrying case. Dabi clapped his hands together with childlike joy. "Tiha! Mimi! Tiha!" He hopped off his stool, already thinking of the quality provisions and equipment those markers would buy. Taktu followed with more dignity, though his satisfaction was equally evident. "Come again soon," the Twi'lek called as they departed, her voice carrying genuine warmth. She was as much trader as user, and good suppliers were worth cultivating. Outside, the core vent of Licencia Lava continued its eternal business, a place where anything could be bought, anyone could be sold, and moral qualms were just another luxury most couldn't afford. In such places, a Jawa and an Ewok with Wampa fluids were just another transaction.
The hunt had been profitable, but bounty work was their real trade. With things slow lately, they turned to hunting Wampa to keep credits flowing. But they had a line on a few bounties, and these had the potential to be truly lucrative.